You've definitely heard the term government shutdown thrown around in the news, right? But what does it actually mean when the US government runs out of money? Well, today, we're going to break it all down. Let's get right into it. So first things first, what even is a shutdown? At its most basic level, it's the moment the government's legal authority to spend money just stops. The funding has officially run dry.
So here's how it all goes down. Every single year, Congress has this one critical job: pass bills to fund the government. You can think of it like a household budget, just, for the entire country. If they can't agree on that budget, or even a temporary fix, their permission to spend money expires, and boom, the government can't pay its bills, and huge parts of it are forced to close up shop. And that is exactly what brings us to today. The government's fiscal year officially ended on September 30th. That was the big deadline. But when lawmakers couldn't hammer out a new funding deal by midnight, well, the shutdown kicked in on October 1st.
Now, you might be thinking this is all just a political problem, something that only really matters inside Washington, D.C. But the truth is, the impact is felt far and wide by millions of Americans, and in ways that might really surprise you.
I mean, the effects are all over the place. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of federal employees, everyone from scientists to janitors, who suddenly stop getting their paychecks. But beyond that, national parks and museums have to lock their gates, passport and visa applications grind to a halt, and even some public benefits can get delayed.
Okay, so this is a super important point. Not everything stops. The government splits its services into essential and non-essential. The essential stuff, like military operations and air traffic control, has to keep going to keep the country safe. But here's the catch. The people doing these critical jobs are often forced to work without pay until the shutdown is over. Meanwhile, everything else that's considered non-essential, it just stops. Period. Which leads us to the million-dollar question, right? If the consequences are this bad for so many people, why can't the politicians in Washington just make a deal? Well, the answer gets right to the heart of the political standoff.
At the end of the day, the disagreement really boils down to this. On one side, Democrats are digging in their heels saying they won't agree to fund the government unless certain healthcare tax credits are protected. For them, it's a red line. On the other side, Republicans are arguing that the budget should be passed first, what they call a clean budget, and then all the other policy fights can happen later after the government is back open. And with neither side willing to blink, you get a total impasse. Gridlock.
But if you take a step back and zoom out, you start to see that this whole conflict is about way more than just the numbers in a budget. It's really a symptom of a much bigger fight over which way the country is heading.
Because at its core, this shutdown isn't really about dollars and cents.
It's a fight over deeply held political beliefs. It's about two competing visions for what this country's priorities should be. That's the real fire fueling this whole thing.
And ultimately, let's be real, it's about power. A shutdown becomes this high-stakes bargaining chip, a piece of leverage in a huge political chess match where each side is trying to force the other one to back down.
And that political game of chicken has a very real-world cost. I mean, economists from all sides agree that government shutdowns damage the U.S. economy. They rattle consumer confidence, they put a stop to federal contracts, and they take paychecks right out of the pockets of workers who would otherwise be spending that money. This is not a game without consequences.
So, with all that on the table, what does it actually take to end a shutdown? How do we get the government back up and running?
The answer is actually pretty simple, but it's definitely not easy. The shutdown just keeps going until that political standoff is broken. That means Congress and the president have to get in a room, negotiate, compromise, and finally agree on a funding bill that can pass both chambers and get that presidential signature. Honestly, there is no other way out.
So as this whole thing unfolds, it really leaves us with one final crucial question. It's pretty clear that a shutdown is a powerful political weapon. But as services get paused and paychecks get missed, the real cost becomes painfully clear. It makes you wonder, when Washington argues, who is it that really pays the price?